Everybody is a winner by just being here, by just standing in front of an audience.
Antigua and Barbuda continues to be a pioneer in the fight against marine plastic pollution.
What if I told you that the techniques used by National Solid Waste to dispose of solid waste are inadequate?
2023 Inter-Secondary School Debate Series. Welcome to the 2023 Inter-Secondary School Debate Series, brought to you in association with Caribbean Union Bank. Thanks for joining us this evening for our fourth encounter. If you missed our last three encounters in the 2023 Caribbean Union Bank Debate Series, let me inform you that the three schools advancing in the competition so far are the All Saints Secondary, Sonovel Richards Academy, and the Antigua Grammar School. In our third encounter, the Irene B. Williams forfeited, giving the Antigua Grammar School the edge to advance in the competition. Round of applause to all our winning schools so far. Come on, give them a big round of applause. This evening, we have a brand new encounter for you. Sir McChesney George Secondary and Trinity Academy are meeting this evening to debate the moot. The measures to curb improper disposal of solid waste are adequate. I will repeat. The measures to curb improper disposal of solid waste are adequate. Before we get started, let's meet the members of both teams. We will start with our proposition, Sir McChesney George Secondary.
Pleasant good evening to one and all. My name is Kalian Williams.
A pleasant good afternoon to everyone. My name is Janaya Challenger.
My name is Keandra Williams.
Now to the opposition, Trinity Academy.
Pleasant good afternoon to one and all. My name is Alian Prince.
Good afternoon to one and all. My name is Nathan Neil Smith.
Good afternoon. My name is Patricia Ireland.
Thank you to both our teams. As is customary, a panel of judges will decide on the team that will advance in the competition. Joining us this evening are Sharon Herbert, Social Sector Planner within the Ministry of Social Transformation. Jamil Lee, UNICEF Program Coordinator here in Antigua and Barbuda. And Gavin Emmanuel, Director of the National Archives here in Antigua and Barbuda. Let's hear it for our judges. They always have a tough job. Excellent. Our timekeeper is, as usual, Miss Aisha Lynch. We will begin. Yes, give her a round of applause. Excellent. She keeps us all well informed. Thank you, Aisha. We will begin this evening's encounter with the proposition's first speaker, Janaya Challenger, followed by Trinity Academy, Alian Prince. We will then move on to the second speakers from each team. First speakers will be given 5 minutes for their presentations, and second speakers 3 minutes. The bell will ring once at the 2-minute mark and twice when the time has expired. Following the presentations, we will move on to the rebuttals. In that segment, 3 minutes will be given to each debater. Now that we've gotten all that out of the way, it is time to hear from our sponsor, Caribbean Union Bank. The competition begins when we return. Don't go anywhere.
Caribbean Union Bank for all your banking needs. Credit cards, savings, accounts, and fees. POS terminals for convenience. While helping you with small business development. Whether you need help to achieve your goal, or land loans and mortgages for your dream home. Supporting many programs to help the nation's youth. CUB is always here for you. Times are changing, don't you know?
Call us today at 481-8278. Let's talk.
Welcome back to the 2023 Inter-Secondary School Debate Series. We will begin this evening's encounter with the proposition's first speaker, Janaya Challenger, as I mentioned before, and then following her, we will have Alian Prince. And remember that each first speaker will be given 5 minutes to complete their presentation. If you're just joining us, the teams will debate the moot. The measures to curb improper disposal of solid waste are adequate. We will now begin this encounter with the first speaker from the proposition, Sir McChesney George Secondary. Please welcome her, Janaya Challenger.
Madam Moderator, honorable judges, my worthy opponents, listening and viewing audiences, good evening. My colleague and I will prove to you beyond any reasonable doubt that the measures to curb improper disposal of solid waste are adequate. We are very much aware that improper disposal of waste is a general and very sensitive issue, and rightly so. And while we may become incensed at every side of improper disposal of solid waste, we should not confuse the act with a lack of effort to curb it. Madam Moderator, curbing the practice does not equate to eliminating it, although that would be ideal. However, we do not live in a perfect world. Let me hasten to define the key terms in the moot and establish the parameters for our argument. According to the National Solid Waste Management Authorities, improper disposal is the disposal of solid waste at any location which is not permitted under the Solid Waste Authority. Britannica defines curb as, and I quote, something that controls or limits something else, end of quote. Cambridge Dictionary defines adequate as, and I quote, when something is good enough but not excellent, end quote. Merriam-Webster defines measures as, and I quote, a plan or step of legislative act, end of quote. Therefore, we contend that the plans and legislation put in place to limit or control the improper disposal of solid waste at any location which is not permitted by the authorities, for example, National Solid Waste Management Authorities, is in fact satisfactory. Madam Moderator, since the moot does not suggest that we are confining the argument to the local context, I will outline some general measures that are used universally to curb improper disposal of solid waste. However, since charity begins at home, my colleague will use local examples and elaborate on some of the measures which I will outline. In an online article entitled Solid Waste Management Strategy, the following were identified as important solid waste management measures which we agree are critical to curbing improper disposal. The measures are reducing the waste we produce, reusing items as much as possible, recycling waste items so their materials can be recovered and reused, and composting organic waste residues. Madam Moderator, doesn't this list sound very familiar? These are all measures that have been promoted over the years by local authorities, including the National Solid Waste Management Authority. Other measures include educating people about waste disposal through the use of the media, providing a system for waste disposal and management, banning unsustainable single-use items, enacting legislation to serve as a deterrent and also to punish those who dispose of their waste. There are other initiatives like the Plastic Waste-Free Island Initiative, sponsored by the Ministry of Health, Wellness, and the Environment. Madam Moderator, according to an article in the Nature Conservancy, 8 ways to reduce waste were identified. Antigua and Barbuda had before 2022 implemented 6 of those 8, or 75%. These include the use of reusable bottles, grocery bags, avoiding single food and drink containers, buying secondhand items and donating used goods, shopping local farmers, and curbing the use of paper. Madam Moderator, according to a report put out by the Ministry of Health, Wellness, and the Environment, Antigua and Barbuda continues to be a pioneer in the fight against marine plastic pollution. The Twin Island nation was declared to be the country with which emits the least ocean plastic by the Environmental Performance Index. Antigua and Barbuda scored an EPI of 83.70, ranking number 1 out of 180 other countries. The Honorable Sir Malwin Joseph cited in the successfully banned single-use plastic bags, becoming the first country in the region to do so. Madam Moderator, in an article that was published in the Observer newspaper titled, and I quote, "Your sign to curb illegal dumping, Joshelle Wilson, a member of the Environmental Awareness Group, wrote, and I quote, "In an effort to curb illegal dumping and plastic pollution in Antigua, informative signs were erected." When you see the sign, remember it is a sign to change your ways, a sign to remember the use of necessary actions that need to be taken to achieve a cleaner and healthier Antigua and Barbuda. My worthy opponents, is this not an adequate measure? Madam Moderator, to limit and control the waste disposal behavior of these commodities for 8 years and counting is definitely enough. The success of this one measure demonstrates that there is a path to effectively implement and enact other existing measures to meet their set purposes. Madam Moderator, honorable judges, my worthy opponents, listening and viewing audience, we remain resolute that the measures to curb improper disposal of solid waste are indeed adequate. I thank you.
Thank you, Janaya Challenger Team, Sir McChesney George Secondary. And she completed her presentation in a time of 5 minutes, 17 seconds. Now, for the opposing team, the opposition's first speaker, please welcome Alien Prince Trinity Academy.
Good evening, Madam Moderator, esteemed judges, education official, teachers, fellow debaters, listening and viewing audience. The topic for today's encounter is the measures to curb improper disposal of solid waste are adequate. We disagree with this statement because evidence in the past and present show the inadequacy of these measures. These will be highlighted later on. Today, as first speaker, I will be defining a few key terms in the moot and highlight the measures that have been implemented by National Solid Waste to curb improper disposal of solid waste in Antigua and Barbuda. Further, I will outline how the presence of solid waste disposal techniques is testament to the inadequacy of the system. Our second speaker will end the first part of this discussion by evaluating a few of the measures used by National Solid Waste to deter individuals in Antigua and Barbuda from disposing of solid waste in an improper manner. He will also show how inadequate these measures are. I will define 2 key terms in the moot, which I will guide us through this debate encounter. Firstly, solid waste. According to the World Health Organization, solid waste refers to any type of garbage, trash, refuse, or discarded materials. It can be categorized according to where the waste is generated. For example, as municipal solid waste, healthcare, and e-waste. Secondly, adequate. Merriam-Webster Dictionary defines adequate as sufficient for a specific need or requirement. Are measures to curb improper disposal of solid waste in Antigua and Barbuda adequate? I can put to you that they are not adequate. In Antigua and Barbuda, there have been some measures implemented by the National Solid Waste Authority to curb the improper disposal of solid waste. However, the effectiveness of these measures are not always adequate. For example, there's a schedule for daily solid waste collection by the authority or contracted contractors, but this measure has been proven inadequate on a number of occasions. One example of this occurrence happened in Cedar Valley a few weeks ago, and this process of non-collection went on for a few weeks. Think of how individuals were affected. Think about how the environment was also affected, all in a negative way. There are several instances of this occurring in several communities around Antigua and Barbuda. Members of the proposition might want to say that they have financial constraints, but we are not here to discuss the financial difficulties. This is for another moot, another argument. For this moot, we are focusing on the adequacy of the measures to curb the improper disposal of solid waste. Another measure we would want to highlight in the presence of hotline at National Solid Waste, which individuals are free to call to schedule collection of bulk waste. This measure would certainly be inadequate, also if the trucks that facilitate the collection of waste are not operational, thereby magnifying the inadequacy of this measure also. Improper disposal of solid waste continues to be a major problem in this country, with a high number of littering, illegal dumping, and the lack of waste management infrastructure. Members of the proposition, esteemed judges, what if I told you that the techniques used by National Solid Waste to dispose of solid waste are inadequate, and further, they are dangerous for human existence and environment? The techniques, according to the Office of the Director of Audits in Antigua and Barbuda, 2010 to 2011 include the use of open back trucks to transport solid waste to landfill sites. With the use of these open back trucks, many times this allows waste to drop off along the main access road to the landfill, which can cause serious problems in the environment. Dumping refrigerators without removing freon and vehicles without removing oil and anti-freezing liquids creates environmental problems that have further contributed to the contamination of the landfill. Storing tires at the entrance of the landfill. This improper disposal represents a serious fire hazard to the landfill site and the environment. According to audits, in October 2011, there was a fire at the site which lasted for over 14 hours. Members of the proposition, esteemed judges, we would like to draw to your attention to an article in the Jamaica Gleaner on Thursday, December 9th, 2021, which said, and I quote, "Indiscriminate disposal and unsafe management of hazardous solid waste due to the lack of specialized treatment and disposal facilities is a major problem in Antigua and Barbuda." So, Mr. or Madam Moderator, members of the proposition, listening and viewing audience, in conclusion, we the members of the opposition believe that the lack of adequate solid waste disposal measures is a big problem in Antigua and Barbuda. It affects you regardless of your belief or status. The approach should always be to refuse, reduce, reuse. And if we exhaust all other options, recycle. Thank you.
Thank you, Trinity Academy, Alian Prince. We will now move on to the second speakers. Oh, I'm so sorry. Alian completed her presentation in a time of 5 minutes and 47 seconds. I do apologize, Alian. A round of applause for Trinity Academy. We will now move on to the second speakers, and we will start with the proposition. Kayleen Williams, Sir McChesney George Secondary, and she will be the second speaker for that school. Please welcome her. Give her a round of applause.
Madam Moderator, honorable judges, my worthy opponents, listening and viewing audience, good evening. My colleague has already laid the foundation for our argument by outlining the measures that are required to curb improper disposal of solid waste. I will provide tangible evidence of these measures in our local communities. Madam Moderator, curbing improper disposal in any country requires strong legislation. Let me give you some examples of legislation which are currently on our books. We have the National Solid Waste Management Authority Amendment Act 2005. This piece of legislation amended the National Solid Waste Management Authority Act 1995, which is referred to as the Principal Act. We also have the Litter Control and Prevention Act 2019. This act addresses the disposal of litter in a public place, disposal of litter from motor vehicles or trailers, illegal dumping, disposal of waste from construction sites, among other illegal practices. Within this act, some consequences were identified to control the improper disposal of solid waste. For example, the hire of litter wardens. These litter wardens may charge the guilty, who then face prosecution for offenses with consequences such as a fine or confinement. Other measures implemented by the National Solid Waste Management Authority include the provision of a hotline to report illegal dumping, the educational programs on various media, etc. Madam Moderator, another such measure is Operation Derelict, a plan implemented by the National Solid Waste Management Authority to remove dilapidated or abandoned vehicles from the streets. This plan has caused over 170 vehicles to be removed and properly disposed of. Is this not an adequate measure, my worthy opponents? In addition, there is the continuous removal of bulk waste through the Department of Health. Residents are normally responsible for having these materials transported to the landfill and properly disposed of. However, that burden has been lifted over the past 5 years as personnel from the National Solid Waste Management Authority have been doing it free of cost. Yet another example is providing a crusher to the Barbuda Health Department for waste removal and management. However, no personnel is available for the operation of said machinery, and therefore has not improved the waste disposal in Barbuda. Madam Moderator, does this mean that adequate measures weren't put in place? No, but rather a lack of skill set. Honorable judges, the evidence is clear. The measures are there, and the fact is these measures will continue to curb the illegal dumping. Darrell Spencer said it best, an article written by Antigua Observer, and I quote, "It's going to be a slow road to take it to where we want it to be, but we will get there," end quote. I stand resolute in saying the measures to curb improper disposal of solid waste is adequate. We rest our case. Thank you.
Thank you, Kayleen Williams. Team Sir McChesney George Secondary. She completed her presentation in a time of 2 minutes and 59 seconds. Now let's hear from the second speaker, opposition, Nathan Smith, Trinity Academy. Please give him a round of applause.
Good evening, Madam Moderator, esteemed judges, education officials, teachers, fellow debaters, students, listening and viewing audience. Our first speaker has already defined the key terms in the mute and highlighted the measures that have been implemented by National Solid Waste to curb the improper disposal of solid waste in Antigua and Barbuda, and how the presence of the solid waste disposal techniques is a testament and how inequality of the system. Improper disposal of solid waste continues to be a problem in Antigua and Barbuda, with a high amount of littering, illegal dumping, and lack of proper waste management infrastructure. We just need to take a walk in St. John's at the end of the workday or even on the weekends. The deterrents that are put in place to curb improper disposal of solid waste are clearly not adequate. Litter wardens clearly are not adequate because litter warnings clearly are not adequate enough, and even the fines to individuals or organizations are not adequate deterrents. The government has indeed enacted legislation to control improper waste management practices and improper waste disposal methods. However, enforcement of these regulations is not always consistent and effective. As the second speaker of the opposition, I stand to concretize our argument that measures used to curb improper disposal of solid waste are not adequate. Today, I'll be talking to you about a few of the deterrents used by National Solid Waste to prevent individuals and organizations in Antigua and Barbuda from disposing of solid waste in an improper manner, and how inadequate these measures are. There are two deterrents that I will evaluate for you today. These are, firstly, the litter wardens, who are supposed to be visual throughout the country, and secondly, fines and jail time. Members of the opposition, as we traverse daily within our communities, especially around the environs of the cricket stadium and the Carbs Peninsula, we see lots of bulk waste. Yet we are told that there are litter wardens placed strategically around the islands to prevent such happening, and further we know there are legislations with respect to persons being fined or sent to prison for improper disposal of waste. These seemingly are not deterrents to unknown individual in Bellevue who dump bulk waste in a location 5 minutes after National Solid Waste removed some. This information was garnered from our English teacher, Miss Lake. To further concretize our view, To further concretize our view that the deterrents put in place by national solid waste are not adequate, we take to further concretize our view that the deterrents put in place by national solid waste are not adequate, we take you back to an article in the Daily Observer newspaper of 1st May 2019, which was highlighted, "Officials say anti-litter laws are not enough." In this article, the Health Minister, Sir Marlon Joseph, reportedly told the United Nations that anti-litter legislation will not suffice in addressing the magnitude of the problems in Antigua and Barbuda. He further said, and I quote, "Our consumption of single use of plastic items, considering that we are only approximately 100,000 in population, was in millions of bags." When my government emphasized the proper disposal of waste and passed anti-litter legislation, was obvious that those measures are not enough. The problem was too large and beyond the scales of Antigua and Barbuda, Joseph said. So, Madam Moderator, members of the proposition, in conclusion, there are clearly nothing more to add to this debate since I believe, and I'm sure you do too, that we have sufficiently made our case in the measures to curb the improper disposal of solid waste are inadequate. I leave you with this quote by Jimmy Carter, which states, I quote, "This great mountains of garbage and trash represents not only an attitude of indifference towards valuable natural resources, but also a serious economic and public health problem." End of quote. Thank you.
Thank you, Nathan Smith, Trinity Academy. He completed his presentation in a time of 3 minutes and 53 seconds. A round of applause for both of our teams. We will take our second break to hear from our sponsor, Caribbean Union Bank. The rebuttal segment of the competition comes up next. Stay with us.
Caribbean Union Bank for all your banking needs. Credit cards, savings, accounts, and CDs. POS terminals for convenience. While helping you with small business development. Whether you need help to achieve your goal, or land loans and mortgages for your dream home. Supporting many programs to help the nation's youth. CUB is always here for you. Times are changing, don't you know? CUB, you can bank on us. Whatever you need, just let us know. CUB, you can bank on us. Saving your money and your time with the quality service we provide. Banking the better way every time. CUB, you can bank on us.
CUB cares. Call us today at 481-8278. Let's talk.
Welcome back to the 2023 Intersecondary School Debate Series. If you are just joining us, the Sir McChesney George Secondary and the Trinity Academy are meeting to debate the moots, the measures to curb improper disposal of solid waste are adequate. The rebuttal segment is about to begin. Each presenter will be given 3 minutes in which to complete their presentation. The bell will ring once at the 1 minute mark and twice when the time has expired. The opposition will go first. Please welcome Alianne Prince, Trinity Academy.
Why should the country be filled with litter if tourism is our main industry? The status of the country. We do not agree with the improper disposal of solid waste because it causes the status of the country to be looked down on. Also, it would deter others from wanting to visit the country. The first speaker of the affirmative team has tried to convince me that it would cause our country to be beautiful, but it was not given. Finally, we do not agree with the litter wardens being a part of cleaning the country because it would cause us to, because it would not limit how much the persons litter daily. Thank you.
Thank you, Alianne Prince, Trinity Academy. To end the rebuttals, and of course, she completed her presentation in a time of 1 minute and 1 second. To end the rebuttals, we will hear from the proposition. Please welcome Kayleen Williams, Sir McChesney George Secondary.
Good evening once more. Madam Moderator, this is the very reason why the opponents think the measures aren't adequate. They believe that it is the fault of inadequacy. We are sorry to hear about the Cedar Valley accident. However, the National Solid Waste Management Authority has granted jobs to the suitable individuals for the collection of garbage. Therefore, you cannot blame inadequacy of the measures. My opponents argued that illegal dumping is one of the reasons why the measures aren't adequate, but the public knows that they will be fined. Therefore, it is up to them, not us. You also stated a fire took place because of a landfill. Well, we stated that the measures aren't 100%, not excellent, but they will suffice. Madam Moderator, according to a report put out by the Ministry of Health, Wellness and the Environment, Antigua and Barbuda continues to be a pioneer in the fight against marine plastic pollution. The Twin Island nation was declared to be the country which emits the least ocean plastic by the Environmental Performance Index. Antigua and Barbuda scored an EPI of 83.70, ranking number 1 out of 180 other countries. The Honorable Sir Malwin Joseph cited in the successful ban single-use plastic bags, becoming the first country in the region to do so. My worthy opponents, you say that the schedule for garbage collection is inadequate. Well, there aren't much people willing to do such a job, but there are those who sacrifice their health to keep our nation clean. If you use so much plastic still remains, you can't possibly blame that on inadequate measures of the National Solid Waste Management Authority. You can take the horse to the water, but you can't make it drink. We rest our case. Thank you.
Thank you, Kayleen Williams. Sir McChesney George Secondary. She completed her presentation in a time of 1 minute and 49 seconds. Please remember each presenter was given 3 minutes in which to complete their presentation. That brings us to the end of the fourth encounter in the first round of the 2023 Intersecondary School Debate Series. Please show your appreciation for both teams. Come on. Stay tuned. Don't go anywhere. When we return, we will hear from our judges. We'll be right back.
Caribbean Union Bank for all your banking needs. Credit cards, savings, accounts, and fees. POS terminals for convenience. Or helping you with small business development. Whether you need help to achieve your goal. Or land loans and mortgages for your dream home. Supporting many programs to help the nation's youth. CUB is always here for you. Times are changing, don't you know? CUB, you can bank on us. Whatever you need, just let us know. CUB, you can bank on us. Saving your money and your time with the quality service we provide. Banking the better way every time. CUB, you can bank on us.
CUB cares. Call us today at 481-8278. Let's talk.
Thank you for staying with us. Sir McChesney George Secondary and the Trinity Academy met in this encounter. The judges have deliberated and tallied their scores. To present their findings and to announce the winning team, please welcome Gavin Emmanuel, Director, National Archives, Antigua and Barbuda. Please welcome him.
Good evening. The judges found that generally the debate this evening was of a reasonably high standard. We did spot a few areas of concern that we'd like to highlight for the benefit of both teams and also for the benefit of teams who may be watching this encounter. Now, tonight's moot was an interesting one. The measures to curb improper disposal of solid waste are adequate. One of the interesting things about this moot is that it does not limit the debate to Antigua and Barbuda. So we felt that while Sir McChesney George Secondary made some attempt to broaden the moot, at least in the introduction, we felt that more could have been done to explore those areas on a broader scale. We also felt that there was too much reading of scripts this evening. There were times where our debaters were not making eye contact with the audience. This suggests to us that there perhaps might have been a bit of unfamiliarity with the moot. So it is one of those areas of concern that we expect to see addressed as the series goes on. Posture. At times, we found that the posture was a bit casual. Do remember it's a debate, a formal encounter. So be careful with the placement of your hands and the placement of your feet. Look relaxed, look confident in doing your delivery. We also would like to encourage debaters to practice the pronunciation of unfamiliar words. It is only through practice that you become familiar and you become much more fluent with your delivery. In terms of the rebuttals, the judges tonight felt that these could have been much more substantial. And usually I tend to advise teams that the rebuttal usually is where a debate is won or lost. And so just a note to trainers to be very aware of the need to have rebuttals that are substantial. So train the debaters as part of their regular exercise. So with those few words, we'd like now to go into the meat of the matter. For this evening's debate, the better debater for the proposition for Sir McChesney George Secondary is Miss Kellyanne Williams. And the better debater for the opposition is Miss Alian Prince. So for tonight's encounter, with a average score of 76.5 to 50, we declare the winner to be Sir McChesney George Secondary. Congratulations.
Thank you, Mr. Emmanuel, for delivering the results for this encounter. And another round of applause for both our teams. A bigger round of applause for our winning team, Sir McChesney George Secondary. And we have to also put our hands together for our overall best speaker. And the judges will let me know if I am correct. And that speaker comes from the Sir McChesney George Secondary. And that is Kellyanne Williams. Please give her a round of applause. So once again, best overall speaker goes to Sir McChesney George Secondary, Kellyanne Williams. Congratulations to you. Now for closing remarks from both our teams. First, we'll start with Trinity Academy. Welcome, Nathan Smith.
Good evening once again. On behalf of debating students of Trinity Academy, we would like to express our gratitude to the members of the Caribbean Union Bank for sponsoring this event. Also, we would like to thank the judges, moderator, teachers, fellow debaters, students, education officials, and listening and viewing audience for taking the time out to be present at this event. Finally, we would like to thank you for this opportunity for allowing us to participate in this event. Thank you.
Thank you, Nathan, Trinity Academy. Now for the winning team, Sir McChesney George Secondary, please welcome Janaya Challenger.
Good evening once more. My colleague and I would like to thank each of these wonderful persons, our teacher, Miss Charles, Miss Weber, Miss Isaac, our principal, our acting principal, Mr. Harry, and our team's understudy, Miss Keandra Williams, for helping us achieve this short-term goal. Thank you.
Thank you, Janaya. Sir McChesney George Secondary. And thank you once again to both of our teams for doing an exceptional job this evening. And a bigger thank you to our studio and television audiences for joining us this evening. A round of applause all the way around. Thank you. This 2023 debate series comes to you in association with Caribbean Union Bank. Be sure to join us next week for a brand new encounter when the Seventh-day Adventist Secondary School and the St. Anthony's Secondary will meet. Until then, God bless and good evening. Have a great one. Thank you.
Caribbean Union Bank for all your banking needs. Credit cards, savings, accounts, and CDs. POS terminals for convenience. While helping you with small business development. Whether you need help to achieve your goal. Or land loans and mortgages for your dream home. Supporting many programs to help the nations use. CUB is always here for you. Times are changing, don't you know? CUB, you can bank on us. Whatever you need, just let us know. CUB, you can bank on us. Saving your money and your time with the quality service we provide. Banking the better way every time. CUB, you can bank on us.
CUB cares. Call us today at 481-8278. Let's talk.